On 103.2, this is Dublin City FM.
Well, hello, and you're very welcome to another edition of Volunteering Ireland with myself, Helen Ryan. Every week we look at people, their passions and the volunteering they're involved in. Indeed, this is a special programme in that this is the 185th edition of Volunteering Ireland. And when you think about it, 185 different groups, individuals and community organisations looking at a need in their area and selflessly going about working out how they, their friends, their family and the resources that they need can be put together to help other people. It really is a remarkable endeavour, and I really commend everybody who has been so generous with their time in coming and talking with me over the past number of years on the programme here about the volunteering that they do. Today I have a lady by the name of Anna Cannon, and Anna, despite being under a lot of pressure, has kindly agreed to talk with me about the organisation that she's involved in. Anna, you're very welcome to Volunteering Ireland today. Anna, tell me a little bit about some of the members of your organisation and some of the difficulties that they face in life.
Yeah, for example, we deal with teenagers. So we have a 16-year-old girl in a wheelchair. She needs a wheelchair to access facilities outside the home. Would be bedbound approximately 23 hours a day with constant severe pains in joints, muscles, loss of feeling in limbs, ongoing seizures, memory loss. And obviously for a teenager, this is very serious in that she can't go to school. She's only 16, so she won't be able to complete her second level education. She's losing out on her entire social life. The social life being so affected that the normal things that we take for granted for teenagers, such as having a boyfriend, going to her dad's, participating in family activities, the daily activities, she's losing out on all of that. Her days are filled with medical appointments, a huge amount of medication, which is long-term and which also has an effect on her ability, I suppose, to be alert and keep enjoying what should be enjoyed at that age.
That's one of your 16-year-old members. Do you have other such members, Anna, in your organisation?
We have another girl who lives in the countryside, who is in the age bracket of 17. She suffers with ongoing seizures. So for her, she might be able to spend one day a week in school. It depends on the situation. Her mother always has to stay local because she will have a seizure at any time. So, for example, in a meeting recently, in a members' meeting, there was a big thump on the floor and she would have had ongoing seizures. So it can happen any time. So that obviously means for her, is also a teenager in her 17, that she has no ability to have interact with friends, or, she can't be included in things like school trips, or all her sporting activities are gone because this is obviously affecting everything. And it's scary, and her friends have withdrawn because who wants to hang around with someone who's just passing out several times a day? And yeah, it's another example of someone who's suffered immensely, and as a consequence, her mental health has suffered immensely.
Do you have other members as well, Anna?
We have a girl who's now actually almost 19, and for the past 6 years, she has been able to go to school sporadically. She's probably missed about half the curriculum. She suffers with severe daily headaches to the extent that she has been shipped in an ambulance into the Children's Hospital on many occasions, where she's just been overwhelmed with these blackout headaches, muscle fatigue, joint pain, acute and life-threatening autoimmune conditions, heart problems. She's also short-term memory loss and concentration, but in her case, her mental health has been so severely affected of being in pain for so long. She's one of our older girls, that it's affected all her family relationships. She finds it difficult to spend any amount of time with her smaller siblings. She has withdrawn. She explains to us that it's like sitting in a dark room with the door locked and the key thrown away, and you can just see through the window, through social media, what social activities other kids her age are enjoying. So, it's kind of heartbreaking, to see.
They're grim and dark stories and pictures you're painting. Are these Irish girls, Anna?
These are Irish teenage girls, yes.
And how many of these such girls are in your organisation, your membership group?
We now have more than 380 teenage girls in our group.
And would they all have similar type of medical illnesses like this?
Yeah, they all have a very similar, should we say, health profile, similar symptoms, very severe. They are used to being hospitalised regularly. Their life would be filled by doctor's appointments, medication, hospital beds, wards. I'd say that about 90% of them have not been able to complete their second level education. So they've lost out on their entire education.
And these girls, Anna, had they been healthy or have they always had these illnesses?
No, these girls were completely healthy. In fact, high achievers, sporty, vibrant young ladies, until they're about the age of 12, 13 years.
So there's about, how many again, 390 or so of these?
308. There is a number of girls who are in the process of coming into the organisation. So you always have, this week we have 380. Next week we could have 390. And the numbers are increasing steadily.
And how long has your organisation been in existence, Anna?
Started in May 2015.
So in just maybe a year and a half, you now have close to 400 very catastrophically ill girls in your organisation.
Chronically ill with debilitating long-term symptoms that has a huge effect on their quality of life. Yeah.
And tell us the name of your organisation, Anna.
Yeah, the name of the organisation is regret.ie.
And what does that stand for?
Reactions and effects of Gardasil resulting in extreme trauma.
Now, what's Gardasil? This is a common theme for all these girls, is it?
Yeah, it is the only common denominator really between the girls and the change that is common, that it occurred in their life. These girls all received the HPV vaccination in first year secondary school.
Now, for those people who maybe mightn't have a 10 or 11-year-old girl, HPV vaccine, that's a part of the HSE endorsed, World Health Organization approved inoculation program and vaccination program that's run on an opt-in basis through our schools. Am I right?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. So it's gone through all the standard tests and has been approved, and there's a lot of medical science behind it. And yet you have close to 400 girls from Dublin in the past year who've presented with catastrophic illnesses and life-changing disabilities after they received this.
That's correct. And I would have to say that are mirroring symptoms of teenagers worldwide with the very same problem.
There's about 12,000 teenagers in America who have had this type of difficulty, and there's something close to 1,900 in Japan. Is this something that's talked about a lot outside of your group? Is it something that normal people are aware of, or is it just something once you're hit by it, you go looking for a support group?
It seems to be now, I think, through the experience of when you have this number of girls, so this is 380 girls would make 1 in 500 out of 200,000 girls vaccinated in Ireland. When it comes to that more significant numbers, we know that not everybody will get a side effect from medication or vaccinations, but we also know that it can happen. We know that this is always acknowledged by the manufacturer in the patient information.
Some of the other symptoms that girls have reported have been neurological symptoms, autoimmune disorders, bacterial infections. These are all members of your group who in the past year have presented with these difficulties. People who've been very fit and healthy and have ended up as wheelchair users with no real hope at present of that changing for them. Epileptic fits, brain seizures. These are really significant problems that your membership organisation is facing.
It really is heartbreaking, because you have to remember that we are also parents of these children. We are dealing with a situation where we don't know what the future holds for our daughters. We're dealing with a situation where we have several teenage girls who have now been diagnosed with ovarian failure and early onset of menopause, on top of the list of symptoms that you just outlined,
Sorry,
including seizures.
Did you say ovarian failure?
Yes, ovarian failure is when the ovaries stop functioning. So,
and is that typical in teenagers? For many of them to be diagnosed with that?
Oh, it's very unusual for teenagers to be diagnosed with early onset of menopause. It also brings all the other negative symptoms of menopause.
And how many teenagers in your Irish group have either ovarian failure or early onset menopause?
6 in the age bracket of 16 years.
6 girls. Gosh.
I mean, one could look at, if you look at the most common symptoms in a cluster, because these symptoms, it's not one symptom, we're talking about several symptoms. You have girls that are, the most common diagnosis that they have received would be fibromyalgia, Raynaud syndrome, which is a circulation problem, depleted vitamin D levels, which is quite common in the general population, and non-epileptic seizures. So those 4, that group of symptoms is the most common symptom group amongst the girls. The probability in the general population would be 1 in 50 million of actually experiencing an onset of these 4 symptoms. So if you then take into consideration that we may have 100 or 150 girls with those 4 symptoms, it's an impossibility. You know, it's scientifically, it would be like winning the jackpot multiple times.
Yeah.
And I mean, we have to remember that these girls are in the most vulnerable age group. So what is really scary at the moment, and as a parent and a mom, as well as supporting other parents, is that you now have to watch the bathroom door and the bedroom door of your previously vibrant, happy-go-lucky child who is now suicidal. You know, that many of these girls can't cope mentally with the situation. So that is probably the hardest to deal with at the moment, in terms of just trying to get through the immediate days, you know.
For those of you who've come late to the show, I'm talking with Anna Cannon. And Anna Cannon is one of the parents, the 400 Irish parents, affected by catastrophic life-changing injuries to their daughters. And she is one of the members of a volunteer organisation called Regret.ie. Anna, this support organisation called Regret.ie, it does peer-to-peer support, it does lobbying, and it does research. And most important, it also encapsulates a group of people whose symptoms and the presentation of those symptoms have been so overwhelming and astonishing that it somewhat belies scientific probability. The chances of the combination of effects happening to girls is 1 in 50 million, and yet in Ireland we have a cluster of 120 so far out of 400 girls affected, presenting with this 1 in 50 million series of catastrophic life-changing effects. The common denominator between many of these girls is that they had received an injection of the controversial Gardasil HPV vaccination. Now, one of the things that I suppose I have to say in the making of this is that this is endorsed by the HSE. The Minister for Health, who's a Dr. Leo Varadkar, has expressed his concerns in the Dáil that mere ministers are talking about this, and that it has been scientifically approved, and that it is an injection against 2 of the 100 forms of HPV cancer that can occur later in life. Of course, we have other screening methodologies for these cancers, but nevertheless, one of the things your membership organisation, volunteer membership organisation, does, Anna, is it does research into this. What are some of the findings of your research? Bearing in mind it's layman's research, what are some of the findings that you have found surprising, Anna?
Well, it is very difficult when you find yourself in a position that you have to research, and your findings are going to be relating to your own child. So, for example, my findings of the last year was from 2011, where several vials of Gardasil from several countries were tested in 2 independent laboratories across Europe, and all of them turned out to be contaminated by genetically engineered DNA. This only came to light for us in regret just before the end of last year or beginning of the year, and it was absolutely spine-chilling finding. Suddenly you had the manufacturer coming out to say, yes, it does in fact include traces of genetically modified DNA, but it's perfectly safe. We have a robust manufacturing process. But we know that this is a biohazardous material and it has never before been injected into a human host in history. So here we are in a situation where these girls have been injected with traces of genetically engineered DNA. We know that the aluminium carrier in the vaccine, the AHA, is binding this for an unlimited time in the system, and I think we all understand the severity of having foreign DNA in your intercellular system conflicting with your own DNA. And
is it not the case, though, that if you kind of look at the tradition of vaccines and medicines, that, you know, some things have spider venom in them, some things are, you know, for example, burn injuries are often treated with particles from pigs, they've synthesized organs from different animals. What's so devastating about this? Is it not part of the normal process?
The devastating part is that it binds with the aluminium component. So normally the body would disclose of a foreign body, if you like, itself. But in this case, it's bound by the aluminium part, and that means it stays in their intercellular system. And this causes havoc internally. And when you take into consideration that these girls have serious autoimmune problems following the vaccination, it just makes for really scary findings. We know that this can cause things like gene mutation, you know, and gene mutation you immediately think about cancer. So we're dealing with what we have in front of us today with all these previously healthy kids who have been debilitated, who are not enjoying life as they used to. But we're also dealing with what the future holds, and we don't have a cure. So, I mean, obviously, you're terrified as a parent.
I think one of the things I had looked at was, now for me, I always say science, it was never my forte, but I somehow respect organisations like maybe the World Health Organization or the Journal of American Medical Association. And I think in their vaccine adverse event reporting system, they covered something like 12,400 reported adverse effects after 23 million doses of the vaccine. So, you know, you kind of say, well, that's a very small percentage. But I suppose if you're the parent of one of the 12,424 girls affected, it's personalised and it's a whole different thing. What was interesting was that the scope of the outcomes, the autoimmune disorders, was really shocking. They reported things like lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, ITP, multiple sclerosis, type 1 diabetes, mellitus, things I can't even pronounce. And yet, you know, we're kind of saying, oh, it's fine, it's just a percentage. But for the parents of children who think that there is a link between Gardasil and their children's, their girls' sudden catastrophic chronic injuries, that's very, very disturbing. And again, it has to be said, you know, the health minister has come out, and Dr. Kieran Connolly, the chairman of the National Immunisation Advisory Committee, they've all come out and said this is safe. You know, so on one hand, we have an organisation such as yourselves, regret.ie, seeking to have a platform to speak for these girls. And on the other hand, we have all of the big authorities in medicine and cancer in Ireland saying this is perfectly safe. There's been no proven research and proven cause and effect between these young Irish children's catastrophic illnesses and receiving this Gardasil HPV vaccine?
Yeah, I suppose in saying that, I mean, we know now we have 45,000 reports of injuries on the VAERS reporting system in the US, and they reckon that only 1 in 10 report side effects. And in Ireland, if you look at the HPRA reporting system, there's over 3,390 actual side effects listed on that system, and many of these, the majority, I should think, are quite severe. So we're now at a number of 1 in 500, which is exactly where Denmark, the figures they presented last summer. So, I mean, 1 in 500 feels big enough to warrant an investigation into what happened to these girls. And I suppose that is the platform for us. Is not only looking for awareness, it's looking for help for these girls because they aren't getting better. We just want our daughters back. You know, we don't have a motive. We're not anti-vaccination or, you know, all my 4 children are fully up to date. My daughter's vaccinations were up to date. It's this vaccination that seems to have caused problems. Not in everybody, but we do acknowledge that some medication, most medication, vaccinations come with some side effects. And whether it's 1 in 500, 1 in 200 or 1 in 1,000, I think considering this vulnerable age group as well, that they do deserve to be, you know, acknowledged, treated, investigated.
One of the other things that your organisation Regret.ie does, as well as supporting its members, is it also looks to lobby and create awareness. For you, as a parent of a daughter deeply affected by this, what would be the most important piece of advice you could give to other parents considering giving their children this vaccination, as per the HSE recommendation?
Research before you sign the consent form for the HPV vaccination. Make sure that you specifically search for the Gardasil patient information leaflet, where the 26 possible side effects are listed. You will be receiving a school pack from your daughter's school from the HSE, which contains a brochure where it lists 5 possible on-the-day reactions. I wish I would have had access to the patient information leaflet before I made a decision for my girl to get this vaccine. And for me, personally, it's my biggest regret. Make up your own mind, but make sure that you have done your research before you sign the dotted line for this vaccine.
And on your website, Regret.ie, is this fully extended patient information leaflet available there, rather than the kind of the synopsis one that the HSE gives to the schools?
Yes, but I always say, for a source, I think go directly to the source and put Gardasil in, Gardasil patient information leaflet. There is actually a situation now where there's 3 patient information leaflets. There's one directly from the manufacturer in the US, which will list, for example, seizures. Then there is a patient information leaflet for Europe, which doesn't list seizures. And then there is the HSE glossy leaflet that parents receive through the schools, on which they base their consent on. And I suppose this is where, if I would have had access to the patient information leaflet from the manufacturer, I would have thought twice about giving my girl this vaccine. Now it's too late.
The prognosis, one of the things you also do in your organisation, Regret.ie, the prognosis for many of these girls is unknown or grim.
Yeah. I mean, that is a very difficult aspect for parents, where you feel that you have nobody. You have no help, no guidance. Your child has received this state vaccination. And, I mean, it's very obvious that we were only too happy to sign up to this program. I think a lot of our parents have been touched by cancer. In my own case, my own mother died in cancer. So it was something that I welcomed. I didn't have any hesitation in trusting what I was presented with and giving her the vaccination. But when you have to watch your child every day and be reminded of what you did to them through signing that consent form, it's a horrible, nauseating sense of guilt that you carry. And when you don't know what the future holds, I suppose. It's my biggest regret.
Some of the children are left in wheelchairs. They're left with severe types of epilepsy. They're left with brain swelling, paralysis. And again, as Leo Varadkar has says, there's no definitive proof that this is directly as a consequence of receiving this vaccine. I suppose you'd have to do clinical trials on all of the girls to prove that. And sure, after the effect, I suppose anything in theory could have been the cause. But it's very unusual that we have a cluster of 400 that we know of so far who are members of this organisation, regret.ie.
We're looking for help, for support and help for these 380 girls to get an investigation undergoing so we can establish exactly what the root cause is of their severe health issues and have a chance to put in long-term treatment plans. They have extensive needs, as you can imagine, in terms of treatment, support, counselling services, things like equipment, wheelchairs, whatever may be needed for families through GoFundMe.
And if people want to have a look at that, they can find that and the patient information leaflet and a lot of the members, their personal stories on your website, regret.ie. That's all we have time for here today on Volunteering Ireland. And from me, Helen Ryan, on 103.2 Dublin City FM. Have a good week and always read the little print. Slán. Anna Cannon, thank you very much for joining with us today on this 185th programme of Volunteering Ireland and telling us about your volunteer organisation, regret.ie. And if anybody would like to perhaps sign up for that, you have support meetings, you have a network, and there's a lot of information online that people may find helpful. Anna Cannon from regret.ie, thank you for talking with us here today on Volunteering Ireland. On Volunteering Ireland.